Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Peace and today we're going to have a little chat about the 1999 horror film Kolobos. 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 I think it's called Kolobos. Anyway, what does Kolobos even mean? Come with me and let's take a look.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. It's alright. It's alright.
I'll hold your hand, your hoof, your foot, whatever your appendage of choice is for today. Okay. Kolobos is a Greek word meaning mutilated, docked, curtailed, or maimed, typically referring to something with a part missing. Everything you need in this book. Everything. I first let this film seep into my brain in 2001 during my university days at Pontypridd. One of my minor but treasured claims to fame is that I shared a filmmaking class with Gareth Evans, the man who would go on to unleash the Raid films onto the world. I'm convinced that those films were the primordial soup from which modern John Wick style violence evolved, and it's something that's still echoing through action cinema even today. Naturally, both Gareth and I are now basking in the immense glory that fame and success has showered upon us. Kolobos was a complete shot in the dark for our horror movie night. We knew absolutely nothing about it, never heard of it, and the DVD box art offered precisely zero clues. Over the years, I've stumbled across several alternative versions of the box art for Kolobos, and some of them are so wildly off base they might as well be advertising an entirely different film. You don't even need to have watched Kolobos to appreciate how bizarrely mismatched these covers are, all while refusing to give the slightest hint about what this movie is actually about. What I can tell you is that there are absolutely no f***ing reptilians in this film. Even the bloody description on the case feels like it belongs to a completely different film. Kolobos, by its very nature, is a chaotic mess, but it's also a uniquely entertaining one. The film kind of lingers precisely because of how strange, scrappy, and unruly it is.
Let's see what we can do about making you pretty again. Kolobos today.
The 1999 film Kolobos centers on Kyra, a quiet, troubled young woman whose artwork is filled with violent, surreal imagery that hints at a mind shaped by trauma. Hoping to push herself into a new chapter, she joins 4 other strangers who respond to an advert for an experimental film project. I would love to be invited to a house for an experimental film project. These 4 people are invited to live together in a house that's been kitted out with cameras, supposedly for a documentary-style study of their interactions. But very quickly after they arrive, the setup feels wrong. The phones don't work, windows are reinforced, and the filmmaker who recruited them vanishes almost immediately. When the doors all become locked and a big sheet of metal or something encase the house, somehow the group realizes that they're trapped inside a structure designed with hidden, lethal mechanisms. Circular blades fly from walls, appliances turn deadly, and overall the environment seems to anticipate their movements. Randomly, a masked or disfigured figure appears from time to time in the chaos, sometimes clearly, sometimes like a hallucination. Kyra starts to react in a very odd way which unsettles the others in the house. As fear escalates and the group begin to fall apart, quite literally, the film weaves in glimpses of Kyra being treated in a hospital, found traumatized and repeating the same cryptic word, Kolobos. The story builds tension by blurring the line between reality and paranoia and Kyra's inner world, leaving the true nature of the house and the experiment shrouded in mystery. In other words, it's a confusing mess. Kolobos came out at a time where Big Brother reality TV style horror films were doing the rounds. A bunch of people, usually dickheads, all stuck in a house for some reason, cameras in each of the rooms, and then quickly finding themselves being murdered to death either by the house, a lunatic, monster, ghost, technology, alien, or each other. Halloween Resurrection springs to mind, along with My Little Eye, which actually I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. It was these sorts of films that I see as the forerunners of more recent films such as Saw and those fantastic webcam-based horror films like Host and Unfriended. Right from the start, Kolobos carries a distinctly 70s to 80s style Italian horror vibe, and I mean that as a compliment. There are clear touches of Lucio Fulci and Dario Argento in its aesthetic choices, and that style blends seamlessly into the dreamlike, almost nonsensical imagery and narrative unfolding on the screen. You know, with Kolobos, you're either watching something uniquely clever and thought-provoking, or a complete bewildering mess. Now, how you interpret it will likely depend on what kind of horror fan you are. A casual viewer dipping in occasionally, or a dedicated horror obsessive determined to devour every strange corner of the genre. And to put it bluntly, if your idea of horror begins and ends with Scream 6 or Annabelle 2, this probably isn't your film. Kolobos is like your first sip of a craft beer. Initially, maybe a little off-putting, a little odd, but intriguing enough that you find yourself wanting just another taste. Overall, the plot feels disjointed and like a hallucination, constantly jumping back and forth along the timeline. We see brief flashes of Kyra in the hospital, but it's unclear whether these moments occur before the events in the house and with the strangers or after. Even when the film eventually clarifies the sequence, it still leaves you puzzled. Was it a regular hospital or was it a psychiatric facility? The movie never really says, and you're just left unsure. The film's strange, uncanny tone is amplified by the performances from nearly everyone except our lead character, Kyra. The supporting characters deliver their lines with the stiff, slightly off rhythm of NPCs you'd meet during a side quest in games like Fallout or The Witcher. And this is especially noticeable in scenes shown from Kyra's point of view. There's a nurse speaking to her. They stare directly into the camera, over-enunciating every word and exaggerating their expressions as if determined to make absolutely sure we understand what emotion they're trying to convey. The whole thing lands somewhere between unsettling and unintentionally awkward. Now I want to talk gore. As I mentioned earlier, it's been about 20 years since I last watched Kolobos, and aside from remembering it as an odd little film, the thing that really stuck with me was the violence. The movie leans hard into practical effects, and some of them are genuinely impressive. There's a moment where someone's stomach is slashed open, revealing twitching intestines, and another where a character's face is essentially melted with, acid or maybe boiling water, who knows. Anyway, their painful faces slammed mouth first into the marble around the bathroom sink. It's grisly, it's over the top, and it's beautiful, beautiful. A sequence that I will never forget. By the time the credits roll, you're still not entirely sure what you've just witnessed. The film leaves plenty of loose ends, odd choices, and plot points that don't quite add up. But at the end of the day, you can either shrug, smile, and accept that you were entertained and that there were subtle nuances and skillful throwbacks to the masters of horror like Fulci, or you can throw your hands up and yell, "What the hell, Peas? Why did you make me think that this was anything other than low-budget, straight-to-DVD, badly acted, badly scripted horror nonsense?" In the end, that reaction is entirely up to you. I give this film a 6 out of 10, and it's a risky one because at the same time I could have easily given it a 4 out of 10 or even an 8 out of 10. They all work in some shape or form. Have you seen Kolobos? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. And also while you're at it, if there's any other scary films or suggestions or things you want to see, stick that in the comments too. Thank you so much for just sitting and chilling with me, your new friend Peas. I really appreciate it. You take care. Peas be with you. Always.
Peas the